Hello, welcome to the Deeper Awake podcast. I am your host, Drury. I'm a board-certified clinical hypnotherapist, spiritual seeker, and spiritual teacher. And today, this week, we are talking about what most people get wrong about Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, or the monomyth, as he called it. If you're researching it online or even in books sometimes, and you come to information on it, I find there is one piece of information that everybody seems to get wrong. And so I just want to talk about that right now. So let's say you're interested in the hero's journey, in the monomyth. So you do what we all do in this day and age. If you want to know something, you Google it. So you Google hero's journey or monomyth, and you find an article on it, and maybe that article has a picture, a diagram of the monomyth, or maybe you go straight to image search, and there are images there, diagrams of the hero's journey. And the thing that you'll usually see is the hero's journey is represented as a circle, and I think that makes a lot of sense. And the circle has steps. So the monomyth is broken down into steps, and depending on where you're learning about it, like Joseph Campbell said, it had 17 distinct steps. Christopher Vogler, he kind of broke that down into 12. Dan Harmon didn't call his story circle the monomyth. He wasn't claiming to reproduce Campbell's map, but he was able to kind of break the same process down into 8 steps. And so depending on where you're looking, you're going to see a circle with steps. Invariably, almost everyone has those steps going left to right, clockwise around the circle. And that's the thing that I think everybody gets wrong. And it makes sense that they would have it go left to right in some ways, because left to right, clockwise, that's the movement of progress in the Western world, in our culture. Clocks go left to right. We read left to right. A progress bar on a YouTube video goes left to right. Cartoonists, they teach cartoonists, if you draw a character running, draw it running left to right to show he's making progress. If you draw him going right to left, it makes it look like he's going backwards or running backwards. So yeah, it makes sense that if you're just kind of drawing this out, you might draw it left to right. But Campbell, when he produced the drawing, he had the steps going right to left. He had them going counterclockwise. And if you've ever noticed Campbell's representation of the hero's journey, you might have asked yourself, oh, it's interesting that it's going right to left. I wonder why that is. And Campbell called this movement the left-hand path. And this can be confusing because the left-hand path also refers to the world of magic and occultism. And coincidentally, I think if you made a Venn diagram of occultism and the hero's journey, there would actually be a lot of overlap as far as what they're about and what they the effect they seek to create. But I don't think Campbell called this movement on the hero's journey the left-hand path because he was referring to occultism. Instead, I think he was saying, culture moves right. It goes right. But the hero, when culture goes right, the hero goes left. And so what that means is think about the way culture tells you to behave. There's some things you need to do to fit in. Go to school, get an education. The reason you're getting an education is so that you can get the best job possible. And what does culture say the best job is? The best job is one that allows you to make the most amount of money. And so after you have all the money that you want to make from your job, go out and find a spouse and start a family and have kids. And then after you have that family in place, you need to buy a home. That's something our culture puts a lot of emphasis on. So much so that we call home ownership the American dream. And I would argue, and a lot of people argue, that that's not really a good description of what the American dream is. It actually describes a relatively short period of post-World War II prosperity. Home ownership wasn't something that Americans always aspired to. As a matter of fact, after World War II, banks were like, oh, we got to get people borrowing money. How do we do that? Let's get them to buy something really expensive. Let's convince them that they should all be homeowners. And so that got people to borrow money. And they did that by saying, this is what you as an American should want. Basically, you as an American should aspire to be in debt. Our culture, the American culture, has an idea of what progress is. But Campbell would say the hero's idea of progress is not that. The hero's idea of progress may actually actively go against that sometimes, because the hero is trying to find what is the thing that holds the ultimate value for me. What is the thing that I consider the highest good? And your hero's journey is your attempt to pursue that highest good as you define it. And then once you achieve that highest good, once you find it, you take it back to the world. You take it back to the tribe. So in going against culture and going against the flow of culture, you're not saying, screw you, culture, I don't care about you. You're saying, I care about you so much that I'm going to get out of the flow and find the elixir, find the cure, find the thing we need, and bring it back and try to start to heal culture. And so to me, because of that, the left-hand movement around the circle is very important. And it's not something that, if you're Googling the monomyth for the first time and you see it going left to right, you're not going to be like, oh, well, that, clearly Campbell wanted us to go with culture. Like, it's not that obvious. So I'm not saying if everybody starts drawing it going right to left, then people are going to be like, oh, this is really something. But I think those kind of things, those imageries, that imagery, that kind of expression of an idea through a glyph, it speaks to our subconscious. It goes in and it kind of cements itself there. And then if you're like me and you're studying the monomyth and the hero's journey, eventually you're going to Google, why does this go right to left? Or you're going to ask somebody, you're going to look that up in a book. And when you see the reason for it, it adds a layer of meaning to it that becomes really important and really makes a difference in your life. Because what it's allowed me to see is that, one, I don't have to want what everybody else wants. Two, and sometimes this is painful, but if not everybody's clapping, if not everybody wants what you have, if not everybody's patting you on the back, it kind of means you're going the right way. Heroes may eventually get those pats on the back and may get the applause, but they may not. But on the front end, you're definitely not going to. On the front end, you're definitely going to be doing something that seems unusual to people. And like I said, by the end, you still may not get it. People still may not ever understand you. And that's okay. To be a hero isn't to be ultimately understood. To be a hero is to follow your own internal compass instead of the culture's compass. Does that make sense? Anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about this week. And so I would invite you, when you see the hero's journey represented or talked about, is it represented going right to left or left to right? And do the people who talk about it, do they point out the importance of going against culture to some degree? And again, I want to emphasize, this isn't a rejection of culture. This isn't, we're not making culture our enemy. You have to ultimately be able to be accepted by culture, because once you have the cure, once you have the elixir and you bring it back, a culture doesn't accept reform that comes from outside itself. So that is to say, I'm an American. I couldn't go to France and be like, okay, French guys, here's what you're doing wrong. They'd be like, this guy is not from here. He's not, that's a terrible French accent. They would say, this guy's not French. Why should we listen to him? And so whatever your culture is, you're ultimately trying to heal it. You're ultimately trying to save it, not reject it completely. But so that's it. That's what I want to talk about today. What everyone tends to get wrong about the hero's journey. And now you are in that rarefied air. You get to be one of those people that gets it right, that understands it. That if you see a picture of it going from left to right, you can kind of chuckle knowingly under your breath and be like, well, Patch and I, we know better. And that just makes us closer. That makes us pals. So anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will see you next week.